When it comes to understanding the Buddha Dharma, the title itself sets a very high standard. The first and foremost difficulty is this: to understand the teachings correctly. And the teachings are so easily misunderstood. With absolute reverence for the Buddha, even if we misunderstand, the Buddha will gently guide us back to the right path. But what's essential is that reverence for the Buddha. Yesterday, before my lecture at Tuong Mai Pagoda, a young man who had been studying for his master's degree in environmental science in Germany came to greet me. He told me that in Germany and across Europe now, people are incredibly drawn to meditation. They're deeply interested in it. He also mentioned that vegetarianism is very widespread over there. And yet, these principles of meditation, of vegetarianism, actually originated here in the East. But we, the people of the East, are sometimes indifferent. When Westerners become interested in something and see its value, they develop and progress with remarkable speed. Meanwhile, on our side, things move slow. For example, there's this story about traffic lights in a certain country. A green light means go and a red light means stop. Everyone knows green means go, but they added the word go below the light. And under go, they wrote vegan. So, go vegan carries a second meaning: become a vegetarian. At the red light, which means stop, they added the word stop. And under stop, they wrote meat. Stop meat. Stop eating meat. Now, to be able to write those words on a public traffic light system, it must be the policy of what? It must be the policy of the government. No individual could just go and write on the lights like that. Their entire political system encourages people to be vegetarian. Any nation that can do this will accumulate immense merit, and that merit will reduce their risk of falling into the scourge of war. We must understand that war originates from the karma of killing. We eat too much meat and then wonder, why me? I've lived a gentle life. The citizens are often pitiable and kind. So why is their country plagued by constant war? If you investigate deeply, the reason is simply food. Just for the sake of a meal, they have to kill animals over and over. And when that karmic retribution ripens, it explodes into devastating war. For instance, there's a short film about survival in the jungle. Four friends are in a jungle in Africa, in one of those arid regions with nothing but cacti. The film teaches survival skills: how to find fruit, how to set traps to kill animals, how to hunt. It's all for the sake of a daily meal that they must constantly kill. They have no idea that they are piling up the karma of killing until it erupts into a brutal war. And when war comes, we see human beings slaughtering one another with a brutality that is incomprehensible. We can't understand the madness that drives them to kill like this. It all stems from old hatreds, from the meals of the past. So, when we choose to be vegetarian, we reduce the karma of killing for the human race. We reduce the karma of killing for our planet, our Earth. These principles are things that we Vietnamese, we in the Buddhist East, have known very well and very clearly for a long time. But now they are flourishing in the West. The Western backpackers who travel here, a great many of them are vegetarian. As another example, our pagoda has the Phat Quang Nguyen Martial Arts School. Sometimes, we participate in events to support the National Traditional Martial Arts Federation. When we do, students and masters from other countries attend. Our pagoda provides meals, but for martial artists. We thought we couldn't serve vegetarian food, so we had to serve meat. But then, some of the international students fasted completely. When we asked why, it turned out they were vegetarian. How extraordinary! We scrambled to find vegetarian food for them immediately. From that day on, whenever we host the Martial Arts Federation, our main meal is vegetarian. We put the meat dishes off to the side. If someone wants meat, they can take the vegetarian rice and simply add a piece of meat to it. If they don't, their meal remains vegetarian. So everyone is cared for. That's how we learned. It turns out that most of the Vietnamese martial artists eat meat, while some of the international students and masters are lifelong vegetarians. It's quite amazing. It's the same at the airports. At first, there was only non-vegetarian food. Our monks and nuns would have a very hard time finding anything to eat, maybe just a plain piece of bread. But now, airports have started offering vegetarian options because so many international travelers are vegetarian. It's wonderful. And in Saigon, in the neighborhoods popular with foreigners, vegetarian restaurants are everywhere and they are always full of foreigners. Meditation is the same. People everywhere are interested now. This center teaches meditation. That center teaches meditation. There's just one problem. Authentic meditation is very difficult, and there isn't a global standard. So, people start teaching on their own here and there, but they teach it incorrectly and there are no results. After a while, people get discouraged. However, if there were a standardized, authentic method like the one we have at our pagoda, people wouldn't get discouraged. Because the path, the roadmap, is scientific, clear, and true to the way the Buddha taught. So, we are very happy to see so much interest in meditation everywhere. But without a standard method, with each place teaching on its own, they don't succeed. This causes them to falter and become timid. And then eventually they withdraw. That's why this April at Xe Loi Pagoda, I will give a lecture on the basic principles of meditation that every practitioner must know. This means no matter which meditation system you practice, no matter who your teacher is, there are certain principles that are absolutely critical. Every system must adhere to them. If you violate them, your meditation is immediately corrupted, immediately wrong. Next month at Xe Loi Pagoda in Saigon, I will speak on this. But today's talk is a little different. It doesn't fall under our usual Phap Van meditation series theme. In those courses, I usually delve into psychology, into the nature of the mind. But today, I want to step outside that a little and talk about what it truly means to understand the Buddha Dharma. What makes a person someone who truly understands the Buddha Dharma? That is our topic for today. The term we are using is understanding the Buddha Dharma. This is a very noble title, not unlike a national honor. It's not to be taken lightly. So, what defines a person who can be called someone who understands the Buddha Dharma? Is someone who has gone to the pagoda for many years a person who understands the Buddha Dharma? Not yet. That's right, not yet. They may have gone for a long time, but they might not know why they go. Often, going to the pagoda is just about prostrating without knowing what it's for. Or it's just about sweeping the temple grounds without knowing the purpose. And many times, it's just about following the particular sect of that one pagoda, which cannot be called a true understanding of the Buddha Dharma. The term understanding the Buddha Dharma is vast. Often, we think it must be a scholar, someone who has researched for many years, who can be called an expert. But even that isn't enough. Even if a person has researched history, doctrine, sutras, commentaries, and monastic rules, even if they have consulted with experts from many countries, they still can't be called someone who understands the Buddha Dharma. Why? Because they haven't practiced. In Buddhism, without practice, you understand nothing at all. Without practice, you don't understand. For example, we can talk about the principle of compassion, but if we have never truly practiced love, and to love means to give, to help, and yet we haven't helped a single person, then we shouldn't speak of compassion. If you haven't practiced compassion, you can read the Buddha's words on it 1,000 times and you still won't understand. So this title, Understanding the Buddha Dharma, its requirements are high, its standards are very high. It's not easy at all. A person who truly understands the Buddha Dharma is a true teacher. They understand everything and have practiced diligently. Even if they haven't reached enlightenment, they have struggled and striven in their practice. Or take the word meditation. I see this so often. I'll read books or articles about meditation, and I realize the author hasn't practiced much at all. They just listened to some concepts, became fascinated, and then wrote about them in a romantic, soaring style for entertainment. But inwardly, there's nothing there. There has been no struggle, no moment of concentrating the mind, not a single taste of the true flavor of genuine meditation. They can write beautifully, but such a person cannot be called someone who understands the Buddha Dharma. Then there are those who write about the Buddha, but they write so superficially without a heart of reverence. They don't understand much about the Buddha at all. This is also very worrying. They too cannot be called people who understand the Buddha Dharma even if they've written books about him. There are even those who twist the Buddha's teachings to fit their own opinions, which is a grave danger. So many people interpret the Dharma according to their own ideas. For instance, the Buddha spoke of 3 realms and 6 paths of existence. But one teacher rejected it all completely, claiming only the human and animal realms exist. He dismissed the heavens, hells, and hungry ghost realms. To do that is to oppose the Buddha, to disobey the Buddha's words. The Buddha taught 3 realms and 6 paths. We must respect that. Our wisdom is not equal to the Buddha's. We should not try to correct his ideas. There are so many things for which we are foolish, clumsy, immature, and ignorant. We cannot possibly understand everything. That is why we must place our faith in the Buddha. There are many things in this life we cannot fully grasp. If we demand to understand everything before we commit to a path, we will die before we have practiced anything of value. It's just like the story the Buddha often told about the man shot with a poisoned arrow. A doctor arrives to apply medicine and pull it out. But the man says, wait. Before you pull it out, you must tell me who shot me. Where was this arrow made? What is the poison's name? What are its ingredients? The doctor is stunned. If he were to investigate all of that, the man would be long dead. There is no time. So, in this life, sometimes you have to take a risk. A small risk. For example, we place our faith in the Buddha. Do we understand everything about him yet? No, we don't. We don't have the wisdom to fully comprehend the Buddha, but based on the fundamental principles he taught. Our own intelligence and intuition tell us that this is right. And so we place our faith in him starting from there. Then we practice. And as we practice, we begin to understand more and more. And more and more. And the more we understand, the more our reverence for the Buddha grows until one day it bursts forth absolute and complete. At that moment, we have succeeded. But in the beginning, we must have faith. It's like the science of mathematics. At the start, you have to place your faith in mathematics, don't you? And what is that initial faith in? It's faith in things like Euclid's postulates. These are axioms that cannot be proven. You simply have to accept them. And as it turned out, that faith was well placed. It was correct. And from that faith, we built the entire edifice of mathematics and science. So, the very beginning of science is an act of faith in unprovable axioms. It is the same with the law of cause and effect, the law of karma. Can we prove it? No, we can't. Who can prove it? It is an absolute principle of the cosmos. Science and mathematics have not yet reached the absolute level required to map the pathways of karma. So we are forced to do what? We are forced to believe. And if our belief is correct, our life will soar. But if we don't fully understand and we place our faith in something wrong, our life will be ruined. Imagine this scenario. Someone comes and tells you, and many people repeat the same story, that there is a rock by the Huck Bridge in Hanoi. If you go there and strike your head against it 10 times until your skull cracks just a little, you will go home and win the lottery. Many people are saying this. So you believe it. And what happens? You end up with a fatal brain injury. That is believing wrongly. You couldn't verify it. You couldn't check how true that claim was. But because so many people said it, you believed them. And believing in nonsense can ruin your life. But if you believe in what is true, your life can soar. Take the law of karma and reincarnation. We don't remember our past lives. We don't know for certain. But if, by good fortune, we believe in it correctly, our lives will ascend. Because it is a real, existing law of this universe. This universe operates on a principle of absolute justice. So, when we speak of understanding the Buddha Dharma, the standard is very high. To be called someone who understands, you need to fulfill at least 3 conditions, actually 4, but at least 3. First, to understand the principles the Buddha taught. Second, to understand the history of Buddhism. Third, to understand the history of the Buddha's life. And the fourth, to have practiced. Because if you come to the Buddha Dharma without practice, you cannot be called someone who understands it. The first is understanding the principles. Have we understood them all? We have studied a great deal, but the Buddha's teachings are a vast ocean. No one can proudly claim to have understood everything, because there are things we think we understand, but we haven't understood them to their very depths. So many things are like that. The history of Buddhism, do we understand it correctly? From the time the Buddha taught to after he passed into nirvana, which regions did the Dharma spread to? And when it arrived in a new land? What new forms did it take? How did it change? Do we know all of that? These are complex topics, the subjects of doctoral research. 50, 100, 200, 300 years after the Buddha, which branches did Buddhism spread into? When did it reach Sri Lanka? When did it arrive in Korea and Japan? It even reached places like Ukraine, Central Asia, Egypt, and across Europe. When it arrived, how did it have to adapt? That is the history of Buddhism, and we don't know much about it. And in this process of spreading, how was the doctrine itself transformed over the centuries? We don't know that either. And so the various schools of Buddhism emerged. The Buddhism we encounter today is not the Buddhism from the time of the Buddha. Please remember this for me. The Buddhism we receive today has passed through countless intermediaries and countless eras. We meet a teacher, we feel an affinity for him, and so we follow him. But we don't know for sure if he is walking the Buddha's true path. We just have this affinity, this fondness, and so we can't leave. We just keep following, without knowing if his practice is true to the Buddha's. If we are lucky and meet a teacher who truly follows the Buddha's path, our life will soar. But if we are unlucky and meet a teacher whose practice is not aligned with the Buddha, our life is ruined. We gain no merit at all, even after going to the pagoda for many years, because our teacher has strayed from the Buddha's path. This is a difficult situation, and I don't know how to assess it. And who among us dares to stand up and pass judgment? To say here, follow this master, he is the one who is true to the Buddha. Don't follow that one, he is wrong. Do we dare say that? No. We have to remain silent. For the sake of harmony within the Sangha. We stay quiet. We don't dare to criticize or say too much. We just let things be. We follow the teacher we have an affinity with. If we see a teacher who seems truly authentic, we might quietly invite a few friends to follow him. It's all done discreetly, without making a big fuss, without causing division. So the Buddhism we encounter is a Buddhism thousands of years removed from the Buddha. Is it true to the original? Does anyone guarantee it? No, no one can guarantee it. That is why today, the title Understanding the Buddha Dharma is extremely difficult to attain. Extremely difficult. Let's review. First, understanding the principles. Second, understanding the history of Buddhism's development. Third, understanding the life story of our founder. And fourth, having practice. But only if you understand the principles correctly, the first point, can the fourth point, practice, be correct. If your understanding of the principles is wrong, your practice will be wrong. And once your practice is wrong, you will misunderstand the Dharma. You will speak wrongly and lead others wrongly. It becomes the blind leading the blind, and everyone falls into a pit. There is no merit in that, not a single shred of merit. To speak of right and wrong is so sensitive, so difficult. No one dares to declare they are absolutely right. Only two kinds of people would dare to declare they are completely right, those who are truly enlightened or those who are utterly shameless. This point is that delicate. There are enlightened masters like the Buddha who make such declarations. When the Buddha spoke to the 5 ascetics, he said with serene composure, "The Tathagata has attained perfect and complete enlightenment. And because of his immense virtue and the power of his presence, they believed him. They sat down to listen to his teaching. And they too became enlightened." That is someone declaring their own attainment. And that declaration is the manifestation of a vast, persuasive, enlightened wisdom. More recently, I've watched videos of people proclaiming they are enlightened masters, gurus, and so on. You can see the deceit on their faces. They speak nonsense. Yet they have the thick-skinned shamelessness to call themselves enlightened. So reckless. Such recklessness leads directly to the hell realms. That's why a cautious person never dares to claim they are absolutely right, never dares to claim they have attained enlightenment. They just don't dare. So we have these 4 conditions. But the first difficulty remains the greatest, understanding the principles correctly. And the principles are so easily misunderstood, even if we were sitting here today. Listening to the words from the Buddha's own golden mouth, we still couldn't be certain that we understood them completely. It's just like in a classroom. You have one teacher lecturing. But does every student in the class understand perfectly? Of course not, right? The proof is in the test scores. Does everyone get a perfect 10? No. The top student might get an 8 or a 9. And some students get a 0 or a 1. Those who get such low scores are the ones who didn't understand. It's one teacher, but the reception and understanding of each student is different. So, even if we were listening to the Buddha himself preach, it's not guaranteed we would fully grasp his teachings. Let alone today, listening to me while you're yawning and dozing off. In the old days, the Buddha deliberately lectured in a way that people could hear and memorize on the spot because there was no writing. So he would lecture with repetition again and again, again and again. And the people listened and listened and listened, and they would remember it. Later, those disciples would transmit the teachings to others, also using repetition again and again, again and again. In that era, the spoken word was paramount. Memory was paramount. A person who lost their memory could not survive in that world because everything was based on speaking, listening, and remembering. There were no written contracts. Agreements were made by word of mouth. If there were 3 witnesses, they too would just store it in their memory. Nothing was written down on a physical document with a seal. For that society to function, morality was based on keeping one's promise. You remembered your word and you kept it, life or death. Society survived because people kept their promises. If people in that time had been deceitful and unreliable, society would have collapsed. At that time, everything was held in memory, and the ethics of keeping one's word was essential. It was the same in the Buddha's time. He spoke calmly, unhurriedly, and with repetition so that his disciples would remember. I'm not sure if I should say this. Today, I want to reveal something, but I don't know if I should. As a meditator, I have seen the presence of the Buddha. The Buddha is very tall, standing a head and shoulders above everyone else. In a great crowd, he would stand out, majestic. His face is full and beautiful, but it's his eyes that are awesome. His eyes, this world has never seen such eyes. They are large and round, but not bulging. They are sheltered by an eyelid that extends out like a beautiful awning. And his gaze, heavens, no human possesses such a gaze. When you look into the Buddha's eyes, you see an immeasurable compassion that loves all beings. In that gaze, you see an absolute, serene tranquility, and emptiness. In that gaze, you see a wisdom that penetrates all things. Those eyes are awe-inspiring. The world has never seen them. What I mean is, if you were to meet the Buddha, you could do nothing but kneel and prostrate. You would be speechless. That's why it was easier for people to attain enlightenment in those days. Upon meeting the Buddha, their reverence would become so overwhelming. With their minds filled with reverence and with sufficient merit, they would attain the way right then and there. But today we cannot meet the Buddha. We are at a great disadvantage. We only see statues which bear no resemblance to him at all. The Buddha is beautiful, breathtakingly beautiful. In a crowd, he stands out tall. The Buddha is very tall. I think he must be at least 2 meters tall. Very tall. He stands out majestically among the people. So tall, so beautiful, so awe-inspiring. All right, let's not speak of it further. Don't tell anyone. Okay? Don't reveal this. I was in a good mood today and I spoke carelessly. I'm asking you to keep this a secret. With this many people here, I have my doubts. I don't know if you can keep it. Don't tell anyone. Let's take an example from the sutras. One time, the Buddha was on his alms round with the Venerable Rahula, who was his son. As they walked, Rahula walked beside the Buddha, but always slightly behind, not abreast, yet not too far, so the Buddha would not have to strain himself. As the two walked, holding their bowls, the Buddha taught Rahula about the impermanent and selfless nature of the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Do we understand form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness yet? Not yet. And that's because many of you haven't been with this meditation course from the very beginning, years ago. I have lectured on the 5 aggregates very thoroughly for many years, but many people still haven't heard those talks, right? If you don't know, please try to find those old lectures. I'm not sure if we've published them yet. We have, haven't we? Yes? Later, please share the link so our community can listen. The teaching is that our body and mind are a composite, made of 5 components. Form is our physical body. Feeling is sensation. Perception is the surface activity of the mind that we observe. Mental formations are the deeper, real activities within the mind. And consciousness is the faculty of knowing. To understand these 5 clearly. Is it possible? No. It is extremely difficult to understand. So difficult, in fact, that Vietnamese Buddhist scholars once held a seminar on this very topic. What are form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness? Because scholars all over the world define them differently. But in the sutras, the Buddha just mentions them again and again as the 5 aggregates that constitute a sentient being. And when he did, the monks who were listening understood immediately. I myself don't understand how the Buddha could say it so simply, and the bhikkhus would understand right away. They understood right away. So, as the Buddha was explaining this, Venerable Rahula stopped, stepped back, and prostrated. He would not continue on the alms round. The Buddha asked, "My son, why do you not continue?" Rahula replied, "Venerable one, who could hear these words and still think of eating? In those days, they were truly masters of fasting. So he returned to the monastery and sat in meditation. He fasted and sat. At that time, the rest of the Sangha was out on their alms round, but Rahula went alone to a small room and began to meditate, contemplating the Buddha's words about the impermanence of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. This shows he understood those 5 aggregates very clearly. He contemplated them and entered a state of deep meditation of samadhi. He sat for a very, very long time, but he still didn't reach enlightenment. When the time was ripe, the Buddha used his psychic powers to appear before Rahula. He gave him a teaching on the breath, the in-breath and the out-breath, and then vanished. Rahula immediately focused his mind on the breath. And that very afternoon, he attained full enlightenment, the state of an arahant. He attained the way while fasting. He was already quite old by then. So at that time, Rahula heard and understood. And these 5 aggregates are repeated again and again in the sutras. We can read those same words today, but as for understanding them, we still don't understand. Therefore, to meet the first condition for understanding the Buddha Dharma, understanding the principles, is a challenge that most of us cannot overcome. We cannot overcome it. Or take the concept of reincarnation. We die and are reborn in another life. Everyone understands the basic idea, right? Death is not the end, there is rebirth. If we are fortunate, we might be reborn in a heaven realm. If we are to be punished, we might descend into a hell realm. Otherwise, we might be reborn as a human being. Hearing this, everyone understands. But the process between the moment of death and the moment of entering a new mother's womb, what happens in that interval? No sutra describes it clearly. And so, over time, different schools have offered their own interpretations. They speak of spirits who wander for 200 years, unable to be reborn. Why? Because they have no karmic connection with anyone. No family is there to receive them. If they were to recklessly enter a womb, the fetus would likely be miscarried. Or they enter a womb, and the parents abort it because there is no love. To successfully enter a womb and be born requires that the parents deeply love and protect the fetus. After birth, they must cherish and nurture the child. If, upon discovering a pregnancy, the parents are filled with fear and get an abortion, or if there is a miscarriage, the rebirth fails. It is not easy at all. So the process of death and rebirth is not simple. These things are incredibly complex and we cannot fully understand them. Only when we attain the way can we look back and observe our own journey of rebirth, and observe how other beings transition from the cessation of breath to entering a womb. Only then can we truly understand. This remains a great difficulty. Now let's talk about cause and effect. You reap what you sow, correct? A wealthy person is wealthy because in their past lives they were kind, generous, and helpful. And a poor person? It's because in a past life they were stingy and miserly? Not necessarily. Don't assume that someone in poverty was evil or stingy in a past life. That's not certain at all. Sometimes, it's just because they used their money unwisely. They weren't a bad person, but they made wrong choices with their money, and the consequence is that they lack money in this life. Or consider someone who has to scavenge for food in the trash. Don't assume it's because they were miserly and never shared food. Often, it's simply because they used to wastefully throw leftover food in the trash. And so, in a future life, they must experience rummaging through trash to find something to eat. The law of karma is very subtle, and we believe everything is governed by karma, right? But if karma is an absolute, fixed law, then where is our choice to change our destiny? It would be like a fixed fate. If that were the case, the phrase sow a cause to reap an effect would be meaningless. Sowing a cause is an act of choice, a choice made by our own free will. We have free will, and that is what creates the karma for our future lives. If we had no choice, there would be no karma. So that choice comes from the free will of a sentient being. However, for a person with great merit, their range of choices is very broad. For a person with little merit, their range of choices is very narrow. Let me give you an example. You are walking and you come across 3 desperately poor families. In the first house, a person is dying and they have no money for a proper burial. In the second house, someone is gravely ill with no money for medicine and all the children have had to drop out of school. In the third house, there are elderly women living all alone. Their children have vanished and never contact them. Now, you stand before these 3 families. What do? This is a choice, isn't it? First, you choose to help or not to help. That is the first choice. Here, in this room, what do we choose? We choose to help, right? Because we know the way we help. Now, within the choice to help, there are further choices. Do we help all three families or just one? This is where it gets difficult, right? It depends on our capacity. If we are wealthy, we can easily help all three. But if we are poor, we are forced to calculate. We must see which family is in the most desperate need and help only them because we cannot afford to help all three. Our choice has been narrowed. But if we are wealthy, our choice is broad. We can help them all. But if we are poor, with only a little money in our pocket, our choice is restricted to helping only the most desperate one. When we make that choice, karma is created. If we are generous and choose to help all three, our future karmic reward will be great. If our means are limited and we can only choose one, our future reward will be correspondingly smaller. We don't get whatever we want. Then there are those who make a different choice. Not to help at all. It's their problem, not mine. They walk away. They have chosen the path of heartlessness and their future karma will follow that direction. So, karma is not a fixed destiny. It is a field of choice shaped by our will. At the moment of decision, is anyone forcing us? No. It is our choice. Therefore, the law of karma is flexible. It is an open system. Every time we face a choice, remember this. This is an opening in the law of karma. It is open. Karma is not a closed loop. It is open for us to choose. The person who is skilled in creating merit. The person who is skilled in spiritual practice is precisely the person who is skilled at what? At making the right choices. For example, today, many people chose to go out and have fun. But what did we choose? We chose to come to Fapvan to practice. We are now walking on a different karmic path. Those others are on a different karmic path. Let's say a husband and wife disagree. The wife says, I'm going out to have fun today. The husband says, I'm going to Fapvan Pagoda to practice. At that moment, the two of them have started walking on two different karmic paths. Their choices differ, their directions diverge. Further down the line, can they still walk together? No. Their marital affinity will end. Therefore, if you love your spouse, you must try to what? Advise them, remind them, pull them along so they come with you. One should not go to the pagoda alone, you should go together. Try to bring your spouse with you. Just this single law of karma is not simple or easy to understand. We see someone with a crippled leg and we might say, in your past life, you must have gone around chopping off people's legs. To make such a conclusion is often insulting, isn't it? The person is already suffering, and we compound it by accusing them of being evil in a past life. But it's not always like that. The karmic cause may not have been a malicious act, could have been unintentional. Perhaps the man was a surgeon who loved to operate to improve his skills. When a leg was slightly damaged, from diabetes for instance, he was quick to say, let's just cut it off to prevent it from spreading. He loved to amputate, and in his lifetime he cut off maybe 100 legs. So, in his next life, how could he possibly have legs? It wasn't due to bad morals, but a wrong professional view. So when we criticize them based on morality, we are mistaken and often insulting. Just the law of karma alone is already so difficult. Or let's talk about meditation. We understand that meditation is about calming the mind, quieting the mind, stopping the thinking. Getting rid of wandering thoughts. Okay, so when there are no more wandering thoughts, no more thinking, what happens next? What is there when the mind no longer thinks? On this point, if you haven't practiced, anything you say is just nonsense. And what happens when you speak nonsense about such a crucial topic? You can go to hell. This principle is too important. If you state a wrong conclusion, you fall into a hell realm immediately or are reborn as an animal. It's like the famous story of Patriarch Baizhang and the old man who was a fox. Have you heard it? Every day when Master Baizhang gave a Dharma talk, an old man would quietly attend. But Baizhang, with his psychic powers, knew this was no ordinary man. One day, after the lecture, he called the old man over. Who are you? He asked, already knowing the answer. The old man replied, Venerable sir, I am not a human. I am a fox. 500 lifetimes ago, I was a respected monk and Dharma teacher. One day, a student asked me, is an enlightened person still subject to the law of cause and effect? I answered, no. For that one wrong answer, I have been reborn as a fox for 500 lifetimes. Just one word, no. There are principles so crucial that one wrong answer can condemn you to the hells or an animal rebirth. This is no joke. This is no joke. The old fox, through its long existence, had developed enough spiritual power to take human form for a short time, but it always had to revert to its fox body. So now, when we say meditation is no wandering thoughts, no thinking, and someone asks, so what comes after that? If you give the wrong answer, you can fall into hell. And many people are quick to give the wrong answer here. Why? Because they haven't practiced to that point, yet they dare to speculate and speak nonsense. In these areas, one must be extremely cautious. If you don't know, don't answer. If you don't know, say, please attend a meditation retreat and ask the venerable teachers. Don't answer based on your own speculation. A wrong answer can lead to spiritual death, and our Buddhist tradition has suffered from this. We have been afflicted by a wrong answer given thousands of years ago, one that caused Buddhism to plunge into the Dharma ending age, a time when people abandoned meditation completely. Today, if you talk about monasteries that actually practice meditation, they are almost non-existent. And yet, our Buddha attained enlightenment through meditation. He specialized in teaching meditation. The great arahants all attained the way through meditation. But now, thousands of years later, you mention the word meditation and people turn their backs, cover their ears, and refuse to listen. Why? Because of a period where we fundamentally misunderstood meditation. During the true Dharma age, we understood that meditation leads to no self, anatta. During the subsequent counterfeit Dharma age, the understanding shifted. People practiced meditation to find a super self, Atman, within, believing that deep inside them was something noble, unborn, and undying. And by practicing meditation to find that, they lost all their merit. And so we fell into the Dharma ending age. People gave up on meditation. No one could sit anymore. They'd cross their legs, their minds would descend into chaos, their bodies would become uncomfortable, and they'd give up. Let's just do something else, something easier. They look for an easier practice because they can no longer bear to sit in silence and gather the mind. So why, for all these years, have we persisted with our meditation courses? Because we have avoided the kind of wrong thinking that destroys merit. The wrong view that destroys one's ability to meditate is precisely this. Sitting in meditation in order to find something sublime within oneself. That is the thought that exhausts one's merit. My own good fortune was this. I came to believe in the Buddha absolutely. And what did the Buddha teach? That form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness are all impermanent and all are no self. Why do we practice? To understand this no self. To dissolve our clinging to a self, to no longer see a me in anything. The more I practice, the more I see that I am just grass, just dust. The more I practice, the more I can respect all beings. And thanks to that, I just keep sitting, even though I'm old and my sitting is poor. So, just understanding the principles is already so difficult. And the further we get from the time of the Buddha, the less we understand. We receive teachings today from masters who are not yet enlightened. So, are their words perfectly aligned with the Buddha's intent? No. So, as you have been listening to me, can you trust me? How can you trust me? I have not attained enlightenment either, right? So my words carry no absolute guarantee, do they? That's right. No guarantee at all. But I do have this one piece of good fortune. After many years of studying the path, I realized one thing. No one is superior to the Buddha. And to truly practice, the foundation must be reverence for the Buddha. Just that. By laying that one correct foundation. It's as if the Buddha himself has offered his protection, guiding me step by step so I don't go astray. And I, in turn, transmit that very teaching. What is the first thing I teach? Reverence for the Buddha, right? Once we have reverence for the Buddha, our life suddenly has a great anchor. We are no longer afraid of falling. With this reverence, we feel a profound warmth and happiness. And when this reverence is full, we naturally overcome all our petty, negative states of mind. Our fear, our anxiety, our doubt. When our reverence for the Buddha is strong enough, we become unshakable. What then? If I die, that's fine as long as I have reverence for the Buddha. If I live, that's fine. I will live with that same reverence. In poverty or in glory, in hardship or in ease, I will live by my reverence for the Buddha. Suddenly, there is nothing left to fear. The Buddha will then lead us step by step through this life. Our practice is the same. With absolute reverence for the Buddha, even if we misunderstand something, the Buddha will gently correct our course. The essential thing is that reverence. There was a period in Buddhist history when this reverence for the Buddha diminished, and sentient beings immediately fell into wrong views. They began to misunderstand everything, and the Dharma fell into the Dharma ending age. And the Dharma ending age means what? The abandonment of meditation. Let's briefly touch on the history of Buddhism's development. It has evolved through many eras and has been changed, transformed, and added to a great deal. The truth is, some sutras that we chant enthusiastically today were not spoken by the Buddha. The opening line might be, "Thus have I heard." Anyone can write that, and so we assume it's the Buddha's word and we gather to chant it with great fervor, when in fact it was not spoken by the Buddha at all. Who composed it? This is the painful part. When I was a young novice monk living in a small hut by a river, the local block leader, who was Catholic, would come to visit. One day he said, not every sutra was actually spoken by the Buddha. I looked at him suspicious. If I had been more aggressive, I might have wanted to strike him for saying something so insulting. Sutras must be the word of the Buddha, how could they not be? But he was an official and from another religion, so I didn't want to cause trouble. I just sat silently. He mentioned having studied at Van Han, the Buddhist university, before 1975. I thought he was just speaking nonsense and paid him no mind. I remained certain that every sutra in the canon was the authentic word of the Buddha and worthy of veneration, even though, in my own mind, some of them seemed to contradict each other. I just figured the Buddha must have taught differently depending on the circumstances. I let it be. Until one fine day, my elder Dharma brother said to me, some of these sutras weren't spoken by the Buddha. I stood there, staring at him, wide-eyed. He said, "That's what the old man said." The old man was our affectionate term for our master. The abbot. I was stunned. At that moment, I felt myself falling into an abyss. This was my deepest, most cherished faith, and now it was being shattered by the person I respected most in the world. My own master. It was like falling out of the sky. It wasn't until our master opened a class for the monastics and stated it plainly, these sutras were not spoken by the Buddha, that I could begin to accept it. Luckily, it was my own teacher who said it. If it had been anyone else, I might have lost my faith entirely. When you lose your faith, you cannot live. It's like that. After that, I calmed down and began to investigate for myself. And it was true. Many sutras were later compositions. I remembered the block leader's words and realized he had read historical documents. I remembered books on Buddhist history that I myself had read, which had said the same thing, but I hadn't believed them. But now, with the confirmation of my own root master, I was forced to believe. It turns out that during the long development of Buddhism, many new sutras were created by unknown authors who attached the Buddha's name to their work. This is the great tragedy. It has caused us to understand the true Dharma from a completely different angle, one that is no longer aligned with the Buddha's original intent. There are sutras chanted every single day in most pagodas that were not spoken by the Buddha. It is as painful as that. After realizing this, I made a great effort to find the original teachings. The Theravada tradition preserves these sutras in the Pali language, but when they chant them, lay people cannot understand. So, I took the Vietnamese translations by the great scholar monk, Most Venerable Minh Chau, and set them to new melodies for chanting in Vietnamese so that everyone can chant with clarity and understanding. This act has pleased the Triple Gem and the Celestial Dharma Protectors, and it is why our practice center continues to grow. Think about how information works now. In the past, if you wanted information, you had to leave your home, go to a library, look through a card catalog, and search the shelves for a book. Today, you just type a query into Google, and it brings you a list of relevant sources. Then Facebook took it a step further. You don't even have to search. You just open the app and it pushes information to you. Here's a new article. Here's another one, flooding you with content. The marketing of information has reached our very doorstep. The Dharma must be the same. In the old days, the teachings were kept inside the temple. If someone wanted to learn, they had to come to the gate, ring a bell, prostrate, and beg for an audience with the abbot. People today don't have time for that. We have to make it so that the moment they arrive at the temple gate, we are there to cordially invite them in and share the teachings with them immediately. But even that is too late. People are at home. Our monks and nuns must be willing to go to their very doors to speak about the Buddharma. This is what our era requires. So the path our Phat Quang Pagoda has taken, as unconventional as it may seem, is actually in line with the Buddha's intent. First, we seek out the Buddha's authentic teachings and remain faithful to them. We practice with the aim of realizing no self. Then we use a language everyone can understand. We started with Vietnamese for the Vietnamese people. Now we are gradually shifting to English, so the whole world can have access. But how do you chant in English? In Vietnamese, we have traditional melodies. But with English, if everyone just reads in their own accent, it sounds like a chaotic argument. It's a disaster. We were forced to compose new music with structured melodies and clearly defined notes so that everyone can join together in a single, harmonious sound. With these melodies and complex harmonies, we have elevated the practice to a much higher level. And our pagoda is leading the way in this. Now, just understanding the history of Buddhism, knowing which sutras are authentic and which are not, is itself a crucial form of right view. When we know a sutra is not the Buddha's direct word, we can temper our devotion. We can consult it for reference, but we won't cling to it with blind, superstitious faith. Many people are still lost in delusion because they don't know this history. We, however, do not become extremist. We don't say, this sutra is not authentic, so we must hate and reject it. No. Many of these later texts contain profound ideas. We must consult them and respect them. That is the middle way. For example, I still lecture on the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra. It is definitively not a sutra spoken by the Buddha, but many of its ideas are incredibly profound. What is so profound about it? It teaches that a bodhisattva must perform endless meritorious deeds, one after another, but after completing them. What must they do? They must not cling to the merit of their deeds. Just that. The entire Prajnaparamita collection, which is 600 volumes in its Chinese version, is devoted to this single point. It describes vast, unimaginable realms and cosmic principles, all to illustrate one thing. A bodhisattva performs infinite good deeds for all beings but never becomes attached to the accomplishment. Why say it in so many ways? Because attachment to our accomplishments, clinging to our merit, is a deep, natural human instinct. To overcome it, to fight it, is exceptionally difficult. But we must overcome it to make progress on the path. If we are attached to everything we do, we will never, ever be liberated. The wisdom in the Prajnaparamita Sutra is incredibly profound. Typically, whenever we work hard at something, we become attached to our accomplishment. For example, I stand here on this Dharma seat to give a talk. To do this, I had to research, study, practice, and prepare. I have to choose every word and every idea carefully so that you can understand. Is it arduous? Yes, it is very arduous. After the talk, you all applaud and praise it. What immediately arises in my mind? Attachment to my accomplishment. I gave this talk. I am the lecturer. People love my teaching. I am a great speaker. All of these thoughts are what? They are ego. They are arrogance. And they are obstacles on the path to liberation. Or take your work in the kitchen, cooking for 1,000 people. Is that arduous? It is extremely arduous. You have to plan the dishes, cook the rice just right, make sure the food is delicious, manage the budget, all so that everyone can eat happily. As you watch everyone enjoy the meal, your heart blossoms with joy, but it also blossoms with attachment. Without me, all of you would have starved. Dead. The ego, the arrogance, arises instantly. Therefore, the 600 volumes of Prajnaparamita teach only one thing: do not be idle. Do not be lazy. You must work tirelessly to help and guide all beings. But do not become attached to your work. And this attachment is a natural instinct. The moment you lift a hand to do something, you get attached. The moment you take a step to help, you get attached. The moment you open your mouth to speak, you get attached. Now, you must fight against that. You must wrestle with it, restrain it, and not cling to the merit. It is incredibly difficult, but it must be done. The principle in the Prajnaparamita Sutra is therefore extremely profound. So, this is the value of understanding the history of Buddhism's development. To know for sure which sutras were spoken by the Buddha and which were not, but to not be extremist. We don't reject the later sutras, because some of them, while not spoken by the Buddha, contain incredibly beautiful teachings written by some later master. We must consult them. This is the middle way. Other schools, when they discover a sutra is not authentic, they immediately discard it with contempt and hostility. That is one extreme. The other extreme is to think a later sutra was spoken by the Buddha and to worship it blindly, because if it wasn't spoken by the Buddha, it surely contains errors. Does it not? Even if it has right things, it will certainly contain errors. Therefore, we should only consult these later sutras for reference. That too is a form of right view for us. We will come back and continue this next time. It's quite an interesting topic.